G'day, this is eGames Arcade, and today I'm going to be showing you the WPC Diagnostic system. So I wanted to create this video kind of as a follow-up to my original Data East video, but also just to quickly show you how to navigate this system. Now let's begin with what exactly WPC is. WPC is a series of systems in pinball machines made by Bally and Williams. So on the left we have a Bally Black Rose, and on the right we have a Williams Roadshow. Now the WPC systems are separated into three categories. We have the WPC-89 system, which is the original WPC system, and that is what Black Rose is. Then we have WPC-S, which came after the original system, and that S is for security because the WPC-S system introduced an extra security chip. Roadshow on the right here is a WPC-S. Then there is a final WPC system, and that is WPC-95. WPC-95s are very easy to identify because the WPC-95 machines have a black bezel around the display that says either Bally or Williams in cursive underneath it. So those machines are very easy to identify. As for these machines, there are some differences, but not too many. They're pretty much the same system, just with some minor modifications. For example, WPC-S machines tend to have DCM audio. Yeah, they tend to have enhanced audio over the original WPC systems, and other small changes like that. One change I will quickly go over that, which is why I have both machines in shot, is the interlock system. So WPC-S machines and later machines after that, and maybe some WPC-89 machines have it as well, but Black Rose does not, is the interlock system. If I open the coin door of the machine will disable all high voltage underneath the playfield. What that means is that if I were to start a game on this machine and hit the flipper, nothing will happen. I'm hitting the flippers and nothing is happening, and that's because the high voltage is disabled. Certain things will still work. For example, you can see Ted's motor still works, but the second I can hold this button, the second I close the door, now it works. I needed to point this out because not all the machines have this. For example, Black Rose doesn't. That means that if you're working on the playfield on this machine and you touch a coil, you should be fine. But on Black Rose, you will not be fine. You will feel it. Another thing as well is sometimes operators bypass that interlock switch because it annoys them. What that means is that it may say the coils are disabled, but they're not. So even if you have a machine with the interlock system, unless you can 100% confirm that it is disabled, and even if it is disabled, regardless, you should always be careful of where you're putting your body while working on these machines, because you do not want to get electrocuted. And one other thing is sometimes the interlock switch, like people will say, my machine does not work, none of the coils work, but it may be that interlock has come loose and is just in the cabinet not being pressed in. In that case, the machine's not faulty, you just need to refix your interlock switch. So if none of your coils work, remember to check your interlock switch first. But with that out of the way, let's finally get started on the diagnostic system. So the first thing is the credit dot. None of my machines will have the credit dot on it at the moment, but with WPC machines, you can tell your machine has an error by the credit dot. Right there, where it says free play, there would be a dot. Or up here, there would be a dot there. And if it says credits, it would be the same thing. It would say credits, and then it would have a dot after it, like a little full stop. That indicates that your machine has an error in the diagnostics, and it wants the operator, the person with the key, to go and address the error. And you would address the error by entering into the diagnostic system, and then the machine would tell you what the full error is in the diagnostic system. Unfortunately, I cannot demonstrate that to you today because neither of my machines have faults with them. And that also includes the fault system. I cannot show you what it would look like when it tells you what the fault is because none of my machines have faults. But that won't stop me from showing you the system in general. So let's look at the buttons. On Black Rose and every other WPC machine, you can see that they have 4 buttons. 2 of them are red and 2 of them are black. And let me zoom in for you so that you have a better view. You can already see they have a diagram on there as well to help people who don't quite know what they're doing. Or not that they don't know what they're doing, but don't quite remember what they do. So, the furthest back button is the service credit button or the escape button. And the escape button is for when you're in a diagnostic system. So the bottom row of text is for when you're in a diagnostic system, and the top row is what it does outside of it. So the back one outside of it will put a credit on the machine. So that is putting credits on the machine so that if you weren't on free play and you're in an arcade and you want to give someone a free game, or maybe you wanted to have a free game, you can just press that button and then go ahead and have your free game. The next 2 buttons, the red ones, are your volume. So I can press up and down. And if I look at the display, there we go, and I press those buttons, you can see it tells you what the volume is. Now these machines generally have a minimum volume enabled on them. This one doesn't because I disabled it because it's in a house. Otherwise, normally it wouldn't let you go much lower than about 7. But there you go. Now, that last button, I'm not going to pan back down because you guys saw it before. The last black button is the enter button. And that, when you're on your regular track mode, will enter test mode. This is the diagnostic system. The first thing it's going to do is it's going to display your ROM settings. At any point during this menu, you can press enter again and it will enter the menu. In this menu, we have a couple tabs, or we have a couple categories. We have bookkeeping, wrong direction. Bookkeeping, adjustments, utilities, tests, printouts, and that's it. So, bookkeeping is generally where you're going to find your audits. Stuff like how many earnings has my machine made, how many extra balls, and what's the percentage of it, and how many games and that sort of information. How long has each game been average? That kind of stuff. And you've got all sorts of different versions of that. You've got your standard audits, that's just stuff that's general between each WPC machine. You have stuff like feature audits, which is like how many extra balls has the machine given out due to a particular feature on the machine? How many times has a video mode been played and how many times have they won it? And that's what you're seeing here. I can back out of that. And then you've got other stuff like earnings audits. You've got your timestamps, which is, it tells you the day, you have to have your clock set for this to work correctly, which mine is, what date certain things were done, what's the current time, when was the machine's totals last cleared, when was the clock set last time, and that sort of thing. And you've got histograms, which I'm going to be honest, I don't quite understand, so I'm not going to cover it. Moving out of bookkeeping, we have adjustments, and this is probably one of the most important ones for a owner to worry about if they wanted to do something. Adjustments adjust the game settings. So if we go to standard adjustments, we adjust stuff like how many balls per game, how long does it take for the game to restart when you press the start button during the game. Are there any bonus flips? Are there tickets? Are there, what's the power saving level? What's the general illumination power saving set to? Minimum volume override. That's what I was talking about before, where it would prevent you from putting the volume down below a certain point. And just all sorts of other settings. Tournament play, dim illumination, showtime and date. That is off by default, so that is something that if you had this machine at home, you would want to go and enable. Date style, clock style, language, custom message, which I have, all sorts of stuff like that. Then we go to your feature adjustment, and this adjusts particular features of the machine. Stuff like how long does the lock timer last? you know, video mode flipper. That is, instead of using the I got to zoom out for this one. On Black Rose, there is an additional button down on the lockdown bar. This button here. When I got the machine, this button was faulty. I had to put my own reed switch in. But during the time before I got the reed switch installed, by enabling this, which is on by default, you can use the flippers to actuate the video mode instead of the button. And for certain video modes, mainly walk the plank, it is almost a necessity to have that enabled, because you will not get the accuracy from the button. You will not get the speed that required to beat the mode with just the button. But that's what that means. And all sorts of stuff, lock timers, ramps, combo timers, all sorts of stuff like that. We can then go to your pricing adjust. That's how much, you know, what currency are you set to? What's the maximum amount of credits the machine will accept? Is the machine on free play? And that is the most important setting if you have this machine at home. The only reason you would ever, if you're at home, that is the setting you want to fix. You want to adjust. So you press enter, go to adjustments, go to pricing adjustments, and go to free play. Press enter, and that allows you to adjust your setting, and use the arrow to change it to yes. Press enter, and what will happen, actually I'll demonstrate here, it should come up with a countdown. Now it's on there. And I'll go back, and there you go. That is the setting you want to adjust when you get this machine for your house, when it's been in storage for a long time, or the batteries have died and you've lost all your settings. That's the setting you need to adjust. And there are other stuff here as well. But that's other than free play, there's no real reason to go in there if you're not citing this machine. You've got your high score to date. You know, do you want to delete your high scores? So this is a way you can do it from this menu. And also, what are the default high scores? What award does the high score award? And certain other things like this. I'm pretty sure there is an option to reset it. Maybe not. Okay, and then you got your printer. We're not going to worry about that because these machines don't usually have printers attached to them. Let's go next. We have utilities. Utilities, there are some useful stuff in here, but mainly stuff like clear your audits, auto burn-in, which I'm not going to worry about, clear credits, clear your presets, factory reset. That is, probably don't want to touch that one, but you could, if you got the machine and it already had all sorts of wacky settings put in it, you can factory reset it from the audits menu, from the utility menu. Factory adjustments. Game set ID. Okay, this is not useful for here. That is, if you're citing this machine, you can put in a specific ID for the machine. So, for example, this is the 35th Black Rose you have. You can put down Black Rose 35, and there you go. Or you can put down its location as well. Black Rose at this pub, for example. You can put in a custom message, which I have done, so I'm not going to touch that, but you can do it. And set time and date is the other important thing in here. And there's your reset high score today. Then we can go to tests. This is where you would test the stuff in your machine. And this is also where the interlock switch comes in. Because if you have a WPC-S machine like Roadshow, you will need to have the coin door closed for the coils to activate. But this machine does not have that. So I can show you I can show you a couple of things. So switch edges. This shows you when a switch has been pressed. And you know, I can go around the machine and check particular switches. And that includes the end of stroke switches for the flippers as well. That includes the coin door and the start buttons. So does this have a manual? But yes, and it's got other settings in here as well. Not other settings. You can check all the switches on your machine in here. But those are only the edges, so that's only when the switch is active. There are certain switches that are already active in the machine. And you can do that by going to stuff like switch levels. And now you can see that the trough switches are active and there's one switch that is always closed. So there you go. We can go, We can go to single switch test. That only tests one switch at a time. Wait, what? Oh, no, sorry, my mistake. What this allows you to do is scroll through the menu and find a particular switch you want to test. So, for example, let's just say that the whirlpool ramp is not working correctly. So I can go through here until I find the whirlpool ramp, which will be the top left loop, no, left ramp, enter. We want right ramp. Right jet, ramp down, that's not it. We want right ramp made. So I can then press this switch and it will come up on the display. So that is useful if one particular switch in your machine is being a bit being intermittent, I should say. Solenoid test, this is the fun one. So now we get to test all the solenoids in the machine. And I can put it on running, which will then start cycling through them. And I should mention, flippers, with the 89 machines, the flippers always activate when you press them in the test machine. Which means that technically I could just be playing like this. But I'm not going to stop. So when you're in a solenoid test, there are 3 different modes. There is repeat, which is just the machine repeating the one solenoid. There is stopped, which is nothing's happening. And then there's running, which is what I showed you before, where it cycles through them. We will stop in a second. There you go. But yeah, that's solenoid test. And then you can cycle, I'm going to stop it, you can cycle through all the solenoids in your machine. Now, another thing as well of note is what it says here. Violet black, violet yellow. That is the colour of the wires going to the solenoid. So if I take the lockdown bar out and I lift up the machine, you can see that all the solenoids have a colour code on them. And that will tell you what the colour of the wires are. That is important because you know, solenoids vibrate. And when solder vibrates, the solder will eventually break loose. That means that if you've lost a wire and you don't know what the wire is, you can look for that colour code until you find a loose wire in that general area. And then you can relatively assume, of course you want to double check your manual as well, but you can assume that that is the wire that broke off that coil. But yes, so that is a useful thing that the test may tells you. I should have also mentioned it as well, but it tells you, pretty sure it does, yes, it tells you in the switch as well. So you've got an orange and brown and black wire for that particular switch. So just something minor, just a little detail they put in, but can be very useful. Now we have our flasher test. It operates the same way as the solenoid test, but instead of coils, it does the flasher lights, the flasher LEDs in this particular situation, and it will just run through all the flashes in the machine. So you can see it's just going through and testing them. I'm going to back out of that. We then have our general illumination. That is just testing the what's called the different brightness levels of it. And same thing, you can run it so that it scrolls through all of them. And it's going to test different parts of the machine. Now, that flickering, that is because the machine has LEDs in it. If it was original incandescent bulbs, it would not flicker. But because these are LEDs, they don't really handle adjustments in brightness very well. Anyway, moving on. My personal favourite, sound and music. This would be to test to make sure that your sound chip is working correctly or your soundboard's working correctly. I like it because I can just listen to the music. Now, operates the same way as the solenoid menu, where you have repeat, stop, and run. So if you were having issues only on some songs, you could put it on running, and it would start going through them, and you can note down the songs that are not sounding right. But yes, I can go through sound effects, you know, it ends the songs of the machine. And sound as speech. These machines have a special speech chip, so you can check to make sure that's working correctly. At least I'm pretty sure these have a special chip for that. Again though, it's on the soundboard, so it's just another way of checking to make sure that your soundboard's working correctly. Yeah. That is the most important one on the machine. But yes, so, you know, if you just want to put some music on for some reason and, like, well, put some music on and for some reason you want to listen to your pinball machine, that's how you do it. I will say, though, some songs in this machine are very good. But let's move on. We have our single lamps. That is if you want to test particular lamps in the machine. So I'm going to zoom back out again. And you can see that the special light is flashing, and I can scroll through and just check all of them. Unlike the other one, unlike the solenoid menu, this one you have to scroll through manually. So this is useful for noting, especially if you're LEDing the machine, you can go through and find particular LEDs that are just not working, or particular globes that are just not working. But generally this one's the more useful one. You can just flash them all at once, and then you can just find any that need to be changed or that just don't work. This one, there's no adjustment in the menu. You just enter it and then back out. You've got your lamp and flashes, so if you just want to shotgun the machine and just do everything at once, there you go, you can. I can back out and go display test. Now we're testing the DMD. So you can see that it's going to just scroll through, and this is so that you can find dead pixels in your display. Fortunately, my display is working as it should, so there are no missing dots in my display. Then we go to flipper coil. I don't know why this is necessary because, again, you can just flip it at any point in time. But it's essentially the what's it called, the solenoid test, but with flippers. So I can put that on running and let it flip through my things, through my flippers. Oh, okay, actually that is one advantage. You can test the hold coil. So flippers have 2 circuits in them. So if I look down, you can see it does a weak one, a strong one, a weak one, and then a strong one and a weak one. And that weak one is the hold coil. So that's the coil that activates where after you've held the flipper in. And the reason why that's important is because sometimes the main coil dies, but the hold coil is still alive. So the hold coil is the only one that activates, aka your flipper is very weak. Other times it's the hold coil that fails, and the main coil is the one that's still kicking. And that means that it will do one flip, and then the flipper will die. And that's pretty common in pinball machines. Alrighty, so next we have our cannon, which is a machine-specific test, so I'm not going to look into that too much, and we're back to the beginning. So next we have printouts, and again, I'm not going to focus on this too much, but technically you could hook up a printer to this machine. If you did, you could print out your earnings, print out your audits, print out your standard and feature audits, and all sorts of stuff. But we ain't going to worry about that, because we don't have a printer attached. Then, when you're done, you can press exit, and then exit out again, and that resets the machine. And that's it. That is the whole diagnostic system in this machine. Compared to, you know, Maverick, which is the machine that I did the original video on, it is very easy. It is fairly self-explanatory. Anything that you don't quite know, you can check your machine's manual for. And yeah, generally, like, you don't ever have to power the machine off, unlike Maverick and the other Data East machines. It's just everything's there, everything works. You can exit out of it whenever you want. It just works. And that's where we're going to end the video today. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions, please leave a comment and I'll get to it someday. And yeah, thank you for watching.